Please come talk, just come talk at my table. Bring a point of view, no matter what your label. Just try prove me wrong, but I don't think you're able. Please come talk, just come talk at my table. Will your voice be your weapon, or mine will you disable? Will you slay from far away for thoughts you cannot cradle? Will common sense prevail and free speech be enabled? Will you try prove me wrong by debating at my table? Please come talk, just come talk at my table. Don't call me right wing for faith that makes me stable, while you offer that of Cain and martyr me like Abel. Please come talk, just come talk at my table. Don't finish off my sentence with a bullet that is fatal. Don't debate my own fate and slay me at my table. Did common sense prevail, or free speech be disabled? Did you prove me wrong by slaying me at my table? My view's not so radical, but you could not agree. Plain truth and common sense, so you had to silence me. You may have killed my voice and took my liberty, but my words carried strength, my message will forever be. Did common sense prevail, or free speech be disabled? Did you prove me wrong by slaying me at my table?
All right. So my back is killing me from sitting in this chair all day. Okay. There. All right, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of These People Are Idiots. And today is going to be a very special Charlie Kirk episode. I'm joined here again with my friend, Cyprian Ivanov. And Cyprian, things here suck. So how are things in D.C.?
I'd actually argue getting slightly better.
That's good.
There are two big topics on people's minds here. The stadium deal and the bills in Congress. And So a bunch of people decided, oh, we offered a huge amount of money to build a new stadium here. The mayor hopes that it's going to drive investment into the city and replace the old stadium that is completely decrepit and unusable. And then a bunch of council members decided to add a whole bunch of new demands 24 hours before the deal was supposed to be over, well, completed.
Oh, Jesus.
Uh, so, turns out the effort to suddenly add a bunch of new terms to the stadium deal got a negative reaction from the company uh, that runs the sports team and from a few news followers.
Jeez. Is it like a football stadium?
Yep. The Washington Commanders, aka the old Redskins.
Oh, that's right. I didn't know that was based out of DC. I'm not a sports guy, so.
Eh, a lot of locals like them, but they moved out to Virginia, and the mayor wants them back.
Yeah, the whole culture war thing with the Redskins and all these football teams and ugh. Just ridiculous. Especially when fans start getting attacked out of the blue. It's like, okay, that's a bit much at this point. Kids are getting punched.
And the other thing is bills in Congress about whether or not DC can run their own budget. Well, DC is going to hit, they may have overspent, and they are under a legal requirement to have a balanced budget. So there's a bit of a crisis there. But on the crime bills, a bunch of Democrats voted in favor of the Republican bills for handling crime in DC. Among them,
Yeah.
Henry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Cuellar, who had personally been carjacked. So, at least for some of them, I think they have a rather more personal motive for agreeing to the bills.
Yeah, surprising how that works. Things become suddenly so chaotic. It's in your face 24/7 that the people that are promoting for all these criminal policies are eventually like, oh, all right, we went too far. We need the police back.
There was a certain sense of schadenfreude when one of the council members of Minneapolis who was in favor of defunding the police thanked police for helping her. Was that with a home invader or attempted motor vehicle theft with her kids in it? I don't remember which one.
It's hard to keep up with all these tragedies anymore.
So, the hangover from 2020 seems to be slowly recovering.
That's good. So the rhetoric, at least as far as people you're around, it's not really cheering on the whole Charlie Kirk thing.
Oh, heck yeah. But they're a bit more mild about it. It's more of a, I've never heard of this guy. Apparently a bunch of people are upset sort of stuff,
Yeah.
not a full-throated yay reaction.
That's good, at least. The people that I think enjoy it, I've heard it in hushed whispers walking by. Like, I heard two people talking to work, and they're like, he was evil. He was evil. He was evil. And the other person's like, I know. And they're just having some sort of hushed, creepy conversation. But I think what's weird for me is, like, being in Texas so far, nobody talks about politics or anything like that, like, as regularly as Oregon. But that day, everybody was talking about Charlie Kirk and using words like revolution. And I was just like, oh, God. Except it was different than Oregon, because in Oregon, when they say they want revolution, they really want it. Here, it's just, a bunch of younger guys that are just like, all right, the war is here. You're on my team. You're on my team. And they're just kind of joking and bantering about it. So it's less serious, but also to hear everybody all of a sudden it's worrying.
I mean, the closest to real endorsement of his murder was one of the local crazy activists getting a megaphone and uh, blurring stuff on Twitter and literally blurring with a megaphone outside the Kennedy Center where there was a vigil.
Jeez. I saw there were some brawls too. I don't know if it was at that vigil, but people driving their bikes by screaming shit about Charlie Kirk, and then yeah, they get decked. I'm not saying it's good, but it is to say you don't just do that. That's just as fucked up as like Westboro Baptist Church going to a soldier's funeral and saying "fuck you."
That's what I've been comparing it to. Um, I I compared the woman who was blaring with the megaphone to the Westboro Baptist Church.
And again, it's just like all these gay people, because like at least in one of the brawls I saw, he came in and he's got like the low crop shirt, I think, and a rainbow bag or something like that. You could tell the dude was obviously part of that community. But it's like, how far have we come to where now the gay people are the ones behaving like this? When we used to say we're better than these people are animals, these people are hateful, these people are bigoted, and now I don't like what this has done to the LGBT community. It's gotten them excited. And that's freaking me the hell out watching some of these responses, is at least just online, but
Well,
it's a lot of crazy.
I had a friend who flew into Denver, and I mean, DC gays can be kind of crazy. Uh, but DC is also one of the gayest cities in the country.
Believe that?
Uh, he described the atmosphere in gay bars in Denver as paranoid.
Yeah.
So some people seem to want to enjoy the feeling of being under siege and to enjoy the moral excuse that theoretically being under attack offers.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than engage in a calculated response of, okay, these people may not like how I live my life, what can I do to get them to cooperate with me? They prefer, oh, I'm under attack. I get to beat them up. So it's an excuse for sadistic urges that probably would not be tolerated otherwise.
And that's what anti-fascist ideology does, because the way that people are behaving right now and using that as like some sort of wartime rhetoric, that's no different than what we were doing. You know, we used to tag things on the wall whenever the feds were coming into Portland, and I've spray paint things like "the secret police are coming, shoot them, the time is now, stand up," just shit like that all over town. When in reality there was no attack, and people would have to wake up the next morning and emotionally respond to these messages, and a lot of them I think would lean in and agree. Like, and again, this is brought to you by people who never listen. They just assume and then they act. It's, you don't gotta agree with the man on everything, but he was always there to have an honest conversation. And one of his moves was always to say, if you disagree with me, come talk to me first. Nazis didn't really have a tendency to do that.
Hence why some people are calling modern neo-Nazis woke right, because it's the same old behavior pattern.
It's disgusting. Even some of the comments I got on the Charlie Kirk video, which finally getting some hate comments now, funny enough, after posting about those hate comments in the last episode. But it's just fucking white women. I feel like a lot of this is white women. That's irritating as hell. But it's just like shit like "no tears for the fascist clown." Had like two women on there they were coming from like a Republican perspective, or at least one of them was. And it was saying people worship Charlie Kirk like he was Jesus. And it's like, Charlie Kirk wasn't even on my regular day-to-day playlist. I tuned in occasionally. I really loved his arguments. I loved his arguments against abortion. A lot of that actually like I kind of agreed with in the end. I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. But like, there's like a deification going on, and but like also people being like really callous and treating people's emotional response as though it's nothing and as if it's unwarranted. But it's just like, I feel like that attack just kind of symbolized what a lot of people are feeling. And for me personally, it's like, I'm not even worried about being like Charlie Kirk so much as I'm worried I was almost like the shooter, which is my personal stake in it.
Yeah. Um, if you hadn't made different choices, I think you could have done that.
I used to have a list. Antifa would put out names and photographs of people on their website, and I had like a whole printed packet of different conservatives in town, Proud Boys, different militia members. And I would just like sit there paranoid some days and look at their faces and remember them for no reason, in case like I ever saw them around and they wanted to attack me, or if I felt the need to lash out, and would just memorize the faces of strangers that I'd never met, knew nothing about. You know, it's people don't understand what they're endorsing, because what they're doing when they're cheering this on is they're making people who behave the way that I behaved feel very, very emboldened and feel very, very confident. And oh, if I have public support, if 90% of the population is saying this is a good thing, well, it's my turn to go be a soldier too. I'm going to make everybody proud, which I'm actually kind of grateful to see the response from the trans partner, because when they read the text today in court, it really seemed like the partner was taken aback and was just like, wait, what? Why? And I like to think that that would have been the response of people I knew back then if I had done something like that. But realistically, I don't think it would have been. It's been a very weird week to see it through this perspective. You know, I just did a filming with Vicky Joy Anderson I'm going to post soon. And I just told her, like, I've just been praying for a sign from God that I'm on the right track, that I'm doing the right thing. And, you know, especially with all this occultism and everything that's been going on, it's just like, I want to make sure I'm being guided by light and truth. And I want to know that what I'm doing is firm. And I was just praying on it. And then anti-fascist kid named Tyler takes out Charlie Kirk on the 1-year anniversary of the day I started speaking out. So it's like, I feel like there's something to all this, and people just need to understand it.
You shared a video of that woman whose kid was at the event.
Yeah, Cara Marcel. She's one of the first ladies that sat down to speak with me. She works, I think she's the head of the Department of Education in Utah, something to that nature now. She was running for election whenever I spoke with her.
Well, she had the interesting observation that he didn't seem all that different from a lot of kids she knew, and I can believe that. In a number of political, people who engage in politically motivated violence, a surprising number of them seem to think that they will be treated as heroes, welcomed, in part because they assume that the overwhelming majority of people are for them, and that any reactions to the contrary are just self-interest and people being scared. And in the 1800s, anarchist theorists had the idea of the propaganda of the deed, that people need to know that it's possible to overthrow the government. And then they engaged in a series of assassinations and were surprised when they faced public outcry rather than public support. So historically, this isn't new. It's a behavior pattern we've seen many times before.
We're just seeing it with more familiar faces right now.
Yeah. I studied the wars in the former Yugoslavia. America could make Yugoslavia look like a picnic. And one of the biggest threats for civil war is when there's reciprocal assassinations. Oh, they assassinated one of our guys, we're going to assassinate one of theirs.
Tat.
And that creates a spiral of violence that's very, very hard to contain. So just getting people fired is a heck of a lot more responsible reaction than either letting it go on and allowing assassination culture to fester, or reacting with violence and creating a spiral.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not a cancel culture guy, but yeah, if you're going to be on a ravenous, bloodthirsty, like, I support the killer. I'm sorry, but if I were walking around work all day talking about how Jeffrey Dahmer was good and all those guys had it coming and he was just the smartest guy to ever live and we need more Jeffrey Dahmers, I would get fired. That would be creepy. No one would want to work around that. So it's kind of like, yeah. I was half ready for someone to lip off to me at work so I could fucking spout off at him, but nothing happened like that. I was just having a rough day that day. But, and especially with the tit for tat thing, that's really what a lot of Antifa and Black Lives Matter was. It was just more street level. It was just militias and Antifa members and protesters taking each other out, everybody feeling like there's a tally going on. But I think you're right that when it becomes more prominent figures like Charlie Kirk types, it's going to get really violent really fast, especially when it's very clear that these people put together a list of Nazis in their head in the first 4 years of Donald Trump. And now that he's back and they feel more existential and pushed in a corner than they ever have, they've had 4 years since then to think, oh, I would have done this. Oh, if he ever comes back, I'm going to do this. If this ever happens again, we need to make sure we do it differently this time. And that's what we're seeing.
Plausible. I find it notable that they went after Charlie Kirk, the debate guy, rather than anybody engaged in more obviously violent behavior. And I mean, I support enforcing immigration laws, but why did they go after Charlie Kirk uh, and not someone less not likable?
A better target. That was kind of like my excuse in Antifa in the beginning when I started getting mad at people, but I was still a part of it. I'm just like, hey guys, I've been sitting here reading about real Nazis, real white supremacist groups. Why are we yelling at them? And I come to realize over that nobody actually looks into that type of thing. It's all mainstream politics. It's all, they don't dig deep enough to know how things are operated, what groups actually do what, who belongs to who. All they know is it's all just popularity game, basically. This person's too popular. I want to be more popular than him. This person shouldn't be more popular than this person. It's really just kind of a high school level mentality to where even if they wanted to go after like Nazis and stuff, they can't choose an actual strategic target to save their life because they don't know anything about what they're claiming to be fighting against. Because what I realized with most of the people in that, people that were screaming about Nazis with me could not stand too long of a conversation about what people in the Aryan Brotherhood and all these different groups actually do and how they actually behave, because it's too scary for them and they have anxiety and trauma, and then they want to tune it out because it's just giving them flashbacks to their fucked up lives. So it's easier to bitch about a fucking celebrity than an actual person who could present a very real physical threat. It's just, they're not intelligent. And what surprised me with this one is that the kids thought he was going to get away with it. But I think he even said something to the degree of, I've been given an opportunity, or I have a chance now, something like that. to take out Charlie Kirk, which I have to wonder, did somebody give him that opportunity? Because what people don't realize looking at the photos of, him with his family and fishing and going to Mexico and sitting there with his dad in the restaurant, what people in my life didn't realize is all of the misadventures that I would go on and never tell them about. The crazy people that I would meet that I would never tell them about, to where if I were to go commit an atrocity, my family would probably go on the news and be like, he was struggling with drug abuse and he ran away and he had a couple of breaks, but no, 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 no. Like, they'd have the softer version when in reality, what was really going on? I'm hanging out with former Freemasons. I'm running into fucking terrorists. I'm smoking and doing drugs with people under a bridge. I'm meeting all these crazy people. I'm just going down this whole cultural underground that the older generations just don't quite understand. And it's because the kids tend to keep that from them. Especially in this kid's case, he believed that his father was being radicalized into MAGA. So for him, if he is going around trying to do all these things, making these connections, meeting people, he's sure as hell not telling them about it. And he might not even be telling his friends closest to him, because there's people I've met, stories that I know, that I'll probably always keep close to the vest, because it's just crazy. Our kids are going on adventures and they're meeting dark people and they're doing dark things and they're making dark decisions. Even if it's not like some sort of psyop and it was just this kid going into a bar and meeting someone just as ravenous, if not more ravenous than him, and putting the idea in his head.
Plausible. I think something that an older generation knows is that universities have become kind of ideological, but I think they don't understand just how they don't know how effective it is at that. So some of them, oh, he must have been radicalized at university. I mean, he was probably like that before he got there. It's just he had the opportunity to go uh, down his own rabbit holes when he left home.
And the thing too is, something I can say from my time, that when you start telling strangers that you're in Antifa and you're part of this fight and they agree with you, they start offering you connections. So I live next to the U of O campus, and I remember one day there's this old man walking around, and whenever people ask me for a cigarette, I'll typically give them a cigarette. And it's like the number one question you get asked in Eugene, Oregon is, hey, can I bum a smoke? So typically I'll stand there, and that's how a big reason I was able to meet a lot of people, because I'm not just going to give you a cigarette and walk away. Let's bullshit for a minute. So there's this old guy that was a part of this anarchist group in Oregon, I think back in the 60s or 70s. And whenever I started telling him about the things that were happening at the nights that I was going out, he offered me an invitation to a leftist bar that was on the University of Oregon campus. I can't remember the name of it, and I didn't go. But from what he told me, it was 2 stories, and that essentially it was a meeting hub for local anti-fascist, and that essentially they had meetings every so often, and that from what he described, you go in and it's just queer culture and anarchy and all this in the cafe area. But then if I wanted to go and meet more people, that I could go in and do so. I never wound up doing that. There was just so much crazy happening at the time. But the people that are in charge of a lot of these institutions on the colleges, because it's not just the school, right? Like the University of Oregon has a 7-Eleven and a Starbucks and pizzerias and restaurants and bars. And you just never know what you're going to get into there. And so I speak from experience. When you start declaring yourself Antifa and that you want to fight the government and you want a revolution, at least in Oregon, people were very, very reciprocal to that. And then they also want to let you know what they know. So it's like, it's another one of those situations where I could have found myself down a weirder path. maybe even actually having to get into some of these Antifa meetings, but unfortunately, maybe more so fortunately, I didn't. So there's nothing much to report there. I wish I knew the name of the bar. I'd say it right now, but or even the queer bars are really bad for that. One promise that I had when I was in Antifa is I had a friend, and she was the one who like tried to get me to do the femdom scheme and all that. I've shared that story a couple times, but she gave me the guarantee that if I got arrested, I would get bail. And essentially, the bail fund was going to be coming from the owner of the queer bar, who potentially told all their employees, half of whom were anti-fascist members, that if they got arrested, their bail would be guaranteed. Those bars get a lot of college kids.
I've been reading The Way the Wind Blew about the Weather Underground. And I'm kind of getting the impression that what the Weather Underground did was simply being replicated at scale in the modern US. They were kind of pioneers at domestic terrorism, and the similar ideas, similar behavior ended up getting replicated on a larger scale. So, okay, page 46. They did things like urge people to take LSD, engage in sexual activity designed to destroy monogamous relationships. They expected to be bailed out. They had sympathetic doctors and nurses providing medical care, stuff like that. So they engaged a lot. They engaged in propaganda. They engaged in efforts to recruit and identify members, and then also violence. So, I mean, some domestic terrorists are probably going to follow some similar patterns, but the kinds of accusations they made and the drug use seemed like an interesting parallel.
All of that was a perfect parallel minus the LSD, because queer bars, you get more ketamine than anything. Like, and I mean that really in Oregon, the gay community and ketamine, very prevalent, and it's a dissociative. Like if you do too much of it, you fall into a K-hole. And at least for me, in my experience, it's like I would see sigils and numbers and portals, and then my vision would go black. And then you come back to like an hour and a half later, however long. And that's what ketamine does. At lower doses, it can help you write a song and maybe have a little less anxiety. But I was just offered a lot of ketamine in those spaces very often. And it's just not a kind of place, environment with that kind of ideology where you want to disassociate from the reality of what you're doing and what you're about. Because ketamine makes everything seem great, even your worst fucking behaviors. Ketamine is fantastic. It is, whew, and it's everywhere. And because of that, a lot of people, you see it with the wooks, which people out there, wooks are the young trashy hippie kids with the scraggly dreads, and they're all DJs, and they're all drug dealers, and they bum everything for you and ask you to borrow everything on the sun. It's just one of the things about wook culture is that these are the most oblivious guys on the fucking planet. They are self-centered. They're narcissistic. They can create a hell of a song. They can create phenomenal art. They all put on the best parties you've ever been to and have some of the strongest connections ever, because their narcissism and their inflated ego has gained them a lot of connections. And a lot of these people become prominent young men and women within the community. But I think psychologically speaking, looking at the narcissism in those communities, looking at the ego, the holier than thou. I have all the secrets of the universe because I've done more acid than you. I've done more drugs than you. I've been more, done more, seen more, continuously trying to cover up trauma. And then these people are always like on suicide watch, or fucking, overdosing or getting into crazy scenarios. But at the very least, for a guy like me, I liked those kind of guys. A, because of the drugs. B, because you could have esoteric, crazy, conspiratorial conversations. But I think it just also attracts a certain type of mentality, and we're really underestimating what role drugs are playing into all of this. Like, you just become a different person on these things.
You're probably right. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the effects of club drugs, so I can't hazard a real guess.
You want to
But
go party sometime?
what?
You want to go party sometime? Kidding.
But I have noticed that authors who I know took low doses of ketamine seem kind of delusional and aggressive. Uh, I don't know about the effects of other drugs, but I domestic terrorists are engaged in a high-risk activity. So drugs that would reduce people's evaluation of risk or boost their confidence would probably have they would exacerbate domestic terrorism.
I can tell you the effects from ketamine that I felt that I liked the most. As a guy with like weird tics and like, high levels of anxiety from time to time, or how you might like micromanage, like, are my hands in the right place? Am I looking the right way? All just the little thoughts running through your head 24/7 that kind of build you up a state of anxiety. As soon as you do ketamine, that all goes away. It's full confidence. It feels like you could just go stand in the middle of the road, have a cigarette, because, why wouldn't you be able to? There's no cars. I'm being vigilant. It doesn't feel weird to me. Things that would typically feel weird under a normal state or setting, just suddenly, it kind of absolves a lot of paranoia and anxiety and slows down your mind. And it's really nice until you start abusing it, and then you are just fully confident when you shouldn't be confident, completely bombastic, but there's some sort of block, at least for me when I do it, in the the decision-making process, psychological barriers to evaluating my own self. Like, hey, did this come off a little bit as crazy? Did I need to go on a tweaky ramble for 35 minutes about this to this complete stranger? You just don't think about it.
Okay. I guess that explains the number of people whom I've seen post about both anxiety and a desire to murder their neighbors. So,
God, give me strength over my anxiety. I'll never forget that manifesto line. It's just like, these kids are anxious wrecks. For some reason, that they could still kill. It's just, said I've done a lot of drugs, a lot of fucking drugs, and I can tell you the effects of a lot of different drugs. And when I see different types of behavior, I feel like I can kind of pinpoint what drugs are going on. This kid, I got less of a read, but it's just like Robert Westman, there had to be some sort of psychedelics going on there. Especially from that drawing, I see the demon in the mirror. I don't think that was necessarily representational. I think that kid had a mental snap one night and he saw that and he wanted to preserve that image. And that being that he created looked almost exactly like the DMT being that I saw, except it had a couple more horns. So it's like people are, a lot of these kids are literally going to hell. So many kids that I know, and I don't mean like condemning them to hell. They're doing drugs and they are going to hell in these drug states. Like I got at one point a little purple pill that was supposed to be pressed LSD, and I wound up taking it one night, and I had to go to the hospital by the end of it because it turned out it was angel dust, and PCP. So took that, and then I'm just like, this isn't a normal trip. What's going on? My perception of space and time completely shifted. I felt like my soul was leaving my body. I called my mother and told her that I had been poisoned and that I was going to die. My skin started turning a pale yellowish color. The shadows in my living room began to come out of the wall and create tentacles that eventually wrapped me up. And it just became darkness. And then when I could see through the darkness, it was like I was in a Wizard of Oz tornado, just completely spiraling. And I'm just laying on the couch and everything's just whirring. And I'm hearing voices in my head and demonic laughter. And I just remember spiraling the rest of the night like, this is death. This is hell. This is what it is. I understand now. And, the rest of the night, I was getting chased by shadows around the house. At one point, I fell down the stairs and I injured my jaw, which is why I think my jaw is a little bit off. There was a portal to hell in my closet with fire and flames that opened up when the rest of my room went black. I went into the bathroom. I think I started cutting myself a little bit more when that happened. And it was like there was a small imp that had crawled up my back with its claws. I could feel the physical pain. And it like wrapped its legs around my throat. And it's like my hair was being pulled from my head, but the hair never like left my skull. It was just like eternal hair pulling. And then my roommates, one or two of them were actually professors at the University of Oregon in the music department. One of them took me to the hospital. And then when I went to the hospital, they wouldn't see me. They thought I was just some random street tweaker. I pissed my pants in front of the nurse up at the front. And she just basically told me to go sit down. When they finally took me to the back of the hospital, they just put me in a room by myself. They surrounded me with the white curtains, and I heard the voice of every single person I've ever met in my entire life, down to like childhood friends I had at age 1 who, what the hell? And they were all on the other side of the curtains, and they were all talking about what a failure I was and what a disappointment I was. And look, he's going to die now. Why did he do this to us? And it was that for like an hour and a half until I freaked out and I ran out of the hospital. Like they were trying to give me paperwork for discharge, and I literally pushed them out of the way, and I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I don't know what's happening. That is one night of bad drugs for me.
I've heard people sometimes smoking marijuana with PCP in it. Is that deliberate or accidental?
I think it depends on where you're at. There's a word for it, actually. I can't remember the word. Because that's never something I would have intentionally done. I thought I was just getting acid. Because this guy had sold me a bunch of acid at the time, but apparently a lot of other people got wound up in the hospital too because of it. So I wasn't the only one. He got a bad batch.
Okay.
But it's like, imagine a guy like me if I never told that story, and then all of a sudden I just started drawing demons in a notebook, and then I just went and shot somebody. That would be a very critical part of that story, I feel like. And I feel like it's one that's missing from a lot of these shooters.
I think you're right. I know someone looked through Anders Breivik's manifesto, which, wow, that thing was rambling incoherent.
Which one was Andrew Brevitt's?
The Norway guy.
Oh, okay. Was that the Great Replacement document, or was that a different one? No, that was
I think that's the Christchurch one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with this one.
Basically, he was a smart guy, very controlling mother. Um, his mother was crazy, but he left home, managed to uh, build a business for himself, then planted some massive bombs in downtown Oslo and dressed up as a cop and tried to shoot the kids of the ruling Labor Party.
Jesus.
So his manifesto was something like 700 pages, and most of it was just uh, copying and pasting various articles he liked. But there were autobiographical elements, and also weirdly photographing himself in various different costumes. So,
That sounds familiar. I don't know if you saw the exact video, but it's like it's such a twisted mind of what's going on, and I hate that I know it at this personal of a level. But fuck it.
well, someone suspected that drugs were involved, and I don't know how the guy guessed it, but he specifically guessed marijuana, and turns out he did write about taking marijuana. Now, there's millions of people who use marijuana and aren't violent. But apparently there's... So extrapolating the use of drugs to terrorism, unreliable, to say very little. But it probably does play a role for some people. I'm just rambling, sorry.
No, I'm listening. It's I think the thing is like these are like life-changing moments, right? And I've met a lot of people who they'll just have one bad trip and then they'll never want to touch it again. But I was never that smart. I've probably had like 30 bad trips. But when you're a guy in that space, you have a lot of conversations with people about their drug use and what they've got going on. And even if it's a bad trip, almost every single time you're under a psychedelic state, it is a life-changing experience. You are all of a sudden a character in a movie, and this is like you were put here in this point in time, this right here, right now, to receive this message, to receive these feelings, to have this feeling, to be at one with the earth, to be at one with yourself. And then the alternative is you're going to die and everybody's going to kill you. Like, but people always take something from that. And I think especially when we're in this political environment where everything is apocalyptic and we just see war and death and bodies. Like I've had way too many nights where I've like fried on drugs and I've just watched people get slaughtered in fucking GoPro footage from soldiers in Iraq or something. While like I'm like watching these people turn into demons on the TV screen. It's like there's such a profound psychological effect. And I think a lot of people don't want to have the conversation because it just wind up demonizing drugs. But there's just really no way to explain it unless you've ever experienced it. It's this reality just becomes like, you know, everything seems so big, everything seems so hard and horrible and grand and scale, but time just kind of shrinks in that moment to where you literally feel like you are the center of the universe. Everything is coming out from you. You are creating your own reality. And I don't know, the deeper and deeper you go into these spaces, like a lot of these kids do, especially with the party scene now, because a lot of like kids in Oregon, all they do is just party. You know, it's people not getting careers, not having kids, not getting into relationships. They're just going to raves 24 fucking 7. You'd have people there that'd be fucking 60 years old, still raving, fucking partying. But there's so much fucking drugs. And it's not even just like one set of drugs you have to worry about. Everything's like a cauldron of drugs now. You're never just doing one thing anymore. Sometimes I would mix Molly with ketamine or LSD with mushrooms. And anything that I did, I would always have marijuana in a drink in me. Unless I was really trying to explore the psychedelic space where I didn't want the alcohol to interfere with that. But past that, it was always just like It's like the Powerpuff Girls and the professor's pouring in the mix, the chemical X. It's like that. It's like, how do you determine what mix of drugs they had at that time and what different psychological effects they do and how they mix? It's just a whole science I don't even understand, but I can tell you that I felt it.
Was that true in the left-wing areas of Oregon only, or both left and right-wing areas?
I'd say probably both left and right areas. I spent more time in the left wing, but like, drugs aren't really a taboo up there. So like, everybody will have an acid or a mushroom story. People like to go out in the woods and have fun, but a lot of the heavier drug use I would attribute more to like left wing circles, like county fair, like fairy world. Like, it's a big music scene there, so there's like a lot of like artists that'll come in all the time, big rappers, rock and roll stars, all that. And because it's such a small area, drugs are just all over the place in Eugene, to where you can get them on any corner. One of my superpowers is I could look at somebody and figure out what drugs they had in their pocket just by how they looked and how I felt about them. I'd be like, this guy has LSD. I'd walk over to the guy. 9 times out of 10, he'd have LSD. Oh, this guy has mushrooms. I'd walk over. I'd get mushrooms. This guy's going to offer me meth after he sells me this cocaine. Guy offers me meth after he sells me cocaine. Like, it's not that hard to find drugs. It's really just everywhere, and people trade and barter with it all the time.
Is there a political difference is there a difference in preferred drugs along the political divide?
So I noticed with the queer community, there seems to be a lot of cocaine, or sorry, not a lot of cocaine, a lot of ketamine. I hear meth is really prevalent in the gay community, and I could certainly see that, but I was always really,
Weight loss, I'm assuming.
I hear that, and also sex. Like, it helps people push through. Like, in the gay community too, they have like poppers, which are horrible. It's like some sort of like gas you inhalers. I can't even remember exactly. It's too fucked up. But people who are on meth, for the most part, unless it was in passing, I tried to stay away from people who are on meth and to like make as much distance as possible, just because I know I could be the type of person to do that. But my moral boundaries were always, don't do heroin, don't do meth, don't do fentanyl. Everything else for the most part is up for grabs, but those were like my sacred boundaries. Don't touch it, don't go near it. But there's a lot of meth and heroin in, say, the punk communities there, which is where you get a lot of the anti-fascist ideologies coming from, and a lot of the more dangerous members. And simultaneously, the punk scene, there's also a big white supremacist or right-wing punk scene in Oregon. So they're all doing that shit too. So then you get kind of more like the same shit, really. And then the college kids just have a tendency to experiment and do everything.
Okay.
And there's a lot of boofing these days. I never boofed.
I don't know what that means.
That is shoving drugs or alcohol up your ass to get a quicker effect.
Okay.
That is very common, and I hear about it way too much. And as much of a fucking junkie as I was, I never shoved drugs up my ass. I did kind of wonder what LSD in your asshole would feel like, though. But I also used to always do like LSD with little Sour Patch Kids, and I'd always feel it on my tongue for the entire trip, whether it was a ghost effect or not. So I'm like, I don't want to feel the LSD in my asshole for 30 hours. But it's a quicker absorption rate because of all the nerves or something like that.
I'm sorry. There's just something about that seems kind of funny.
I love educating you on these things. It's fun.
But I got the impression that left-wingers tended to favor hallucinogenics and downers, like various opiates, like heroin, whereas right-wingers tended to favor stimulants like meth and cocaine.
That feels about right. Because I'd say, like, in the rural areas, from my understanding, there's more like meth, cocaine, crack, fentanyl. I've only ever done crack like once or twice. I was like basically blacked out when I did it. But don't do drugs, people, as I'm saying this. Just remember, I don't do this anymore, but I'm just, in the sake of research and transparency and honest investigation, I just want to be full front with it. I'm not trying to like brag about these types of things. It's just to say, like, I've been around the block. You know, people should know what these things are. But hallucinogens in the left are very, very prominent. Like, probably more prominent. And I think a lot of that's because, like, the party scenes and the music scenes there, a lot of it's preserved by the ideology. So, like, most people are left wing, but whenever someone steps out of line, people are very quick to shut it down. So there's like, from my understanding, I didn't go to like the music scene too much. I'd go to like bars and shit. So this is just like what I've observed and heard from other people. But those are the areas that are policed the hardest, with like language policing and not wearing certain things, not looking a certain way. And in those spaces where everybody's essentially the same, and anybody who's deemed as transphobic or racist is getting kicked out and people are cheering for it essentially, then they just kind of keep the party going, stay in the bubble, and just keep doing drugs. So it's like, which is weird because like even when we were protesting, people didn't language police as hard as like at these bars or in these public like left-wing spaces. Like, people could be, white people could be screaming the N-word at a black police officer, or I could be sitting here like criticizing Israel and no one would say anything. But the social scenes there, it's all about keeping up an image, and it's about that what's the word? It's the word everybody uses all the time. I don't know, they're trying to just seem like the most moral person in the room. Virtue signaling. That's what it is. So like these spaces are kept those spaces. That makes sense. You're not going to go to a downtown Eugene bar and find someone with super, super right wing opinions to where if they start voicing it out, they don't get like kicked out or booed out or talk shit to shortly afterwards and sent away. But then you go into these places and everybody's tripping and drinking and.
Okay. I'm assuming Utah wasn't like that, but you never know. And there's a bunch of junkies in Salt Lake City, so maybe St. George, which is a tourist town, has pockets like that.
And I'd also like to say, in terms of Utah, if people haven't seen it, you should go back to whenever I was working at a polling firm. The place that I worked for, Venture Data Research, is based out of Orem, Utah. So realistically, what's going to happen is they're going to get the polls for NBC and MSNBC because they get all the major polls whenever a major story breaks. So this Orem-based company operating out of Eugene, Oregon, which is operated by junkies and fiends and trannies and furries and anti-fascist ideology and all this shit, they're going to be the ones dictating the numbers on Charlie Kirk's death if they're given those polls to conduct.
Okay, thinking it through. Presumably the big thing that DNC strategists and journalists would want to know is who's reacting favorably or negatively to it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of
stop. Sorry, my cat's scratching things.
A lot of the people would try to give the impression that they're glad that Kirk was shot. So they would try to throw out responses that would indicate people are angry over it. DNC strategists would see that and make some guesses about, okay, how badly do we need to back off of this? Or how badly do we need to yank people back in so they don't do something similar? And if they're getting distorted results, they might not view it as important a priority.
Yep. And these places are operated by anti-fascist circles, and they're going to get the data. And this is the same place I worked at after the Donald Trump assassination attempt took place. And people were mad that it didn't happen. People were quiet, but like a sad quiet. like oh, if we get another chance, quiet. And most of the time that I've worked there, people do skew the data based off of their own preferred ideology because nobody pays attention, because all the fucking bosses are coming in high and they're coming in hungover because they're also a bunch of 30-plus-year-olds that just got back from the fucking rave. They don't want to fucking be there anyways. Like, everyone wants to blow their brains out in the building, so everybody's just like I'd go to work and there'd be like bits of chopped up cocaine and blood on my desk. You know, one guy I knew got fired for busting out a bunch of cocaine and mushrooms at one point. One of the times I worked there, because I worked there 5 times, you know, people would be shooting heroin and leaving their needles in the bathroom. You know, it's just people come and dress like animals, and people make games in that place, and it's kind of a culture, you know, like revenge calls. That's a very much a cultural thing in this polling firm, at least where I worked, to where you don't like what a respondent said to you, so you schedule someone to call them back immediately. So what happens? The guy next to you, he gets that call back. Fuck you, I told you to put me on the do not call list. And then that person gets depressed, and then that person goes and rages out, and then that person goes and does more drugs. Then that person also schedules a revenge callback. And it's just like they're all tormenting each other, and they don't know that they're fucking doing it, but they also don't understand the importance or value of their job, nor do the bosses. Like I had in that recording, that video, you have a woman going on racist rants. She'd just scream out that Kamala Harris was a nigger out of the blue, and this woke person who 2 or 3 years prior would have lynched this woman for it is walking by like, good for you, sweetie. You seem a little stressed out. You're a little strung out today. We don't want to get you upset. So you're doing great. You're doing great. Maybe do this a little different next time, but then they don't mention the N-word thing. It's like, guys. Oh, and across the street from that is one of the biggest drug fronts in Eugene, and I'll leave it at that. And it does have cartel connections. Leave it at that.
I guess this helps explain why so many people, the Democratic Party has been making a lot of really stupid decisions, and if they don't get accurate polling data, I guess that might be why.
Because no one would ever check on it. They go based on our boss's word that we're doing a good job, but the bosses don't want to get in trouble because they want to come in and have a cozy party atmosphere all the time. So they're not going to report back to hires up. It's very much a protective culture there. They like tell you how they're operating, and they tell you, they're just like, this is how things actually run. This is what's on paper. This is what we're actually about. None of us really give a shit at the end of the day. Despite the fact some of the bosses there are actually really good people and they put in really good work, but they're also ideologically driven. You know, you go to the work board and it's all about immigration rights and where to get trans medication and just every woke ideology under the sun. Come to the queer bar, come to the queer event, queerify the workspace. And that would just be the entire fucking board. And then you have transgender flags, and then you'd have anti-fascist stickers and Trantifa stickers. And then you'd have the signs that all over the place that would say, be respectful, be respectful. But meanwhile, any conservative that actually worked there only lasted a few days. And I know that because I talked to them, because they're like, this is uncomfortable. Even in the training, they're like, yeah, we know this is Eugene, Oregon, and we all know what the politics are here. Ha, ha, ha. But this was the boss telling me this. I always like to think there's at least one other conservative in the room. And then he proceeded to shit talk Donald Trump for the rest of the fucking thing. And basically, he was pretending to be a respondent and going through the room. And he's like, okay, pretend I'm a respondent. Ask me questions. Okay, do you have a favorable or negative opinion of Donald Trump? Incredibly negative. Well, sir, I need to have very, not so much, da-na-na-na-na. And he would go through the room and ask these questions like a survey, but he would just supercharge his politics into it. It's almost like as you're going into there, they're kind of sifting through you to see if ideologically you'll stand. And they very much encourage getting anybody deemed as racist, transphobic, homophobic out of the workplace immediately. And it takes nothing at all. All they have to do is hear something. And if they were smarter, they would have known about my podcast, because even before I chose to expose them, I told like 2 or 3 of the bosses about it. So they can know that I've just been shit talking their company, but they're too stupid to keep tabs on anything.
I guess this explains why they ran with the Groyper story.
Groyper.
Um, but after they caught the guy, but before they knew much about him, there was someone put out a theory that Charlie Kirk's murderer was a Groyper.
Okay, so explain this for me, because whenever you hear a word one day and then you can't stop hearing it everywhere. That's been the last week with me for the word Groyper. Suddenly, everybody's a Groyper.
Nick Fuentes' crowd.
Okay, so it's like his juggalos. It's his fan base, basically. Makes sense.
Yeah, basically neo-Nazi meme-heavy freaks.
My husband's over here like.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty disgusting people, but I think someone in the media saw, oh, meme references on the shell casings. Who else has memes?
Nazis. That really is the logic of these people. Meanwhile, it was like the most obscure trans reference on the planet. And I think even one of his texts said, basically, fuck, the bullet's in there that says, ooh, woo, notices bulges. If I see that on Fox News, I'm going to have a stroke. Because even he knew it was stupid.
Lol, if you're reading this, you're...
Yep.
You're reading this, you're gay, LMAO.
LMAO.
No, okay, that's really all the exact wording.
No, that's basically it. Husband was just joking about it in the background. But
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But that's really how these people would joke, and why I couldn't hang around so many of these people, because it's just people casually joke about murder like it's this cute cuddly thing, and like their rhetoric doesn't mean anything, and like they're chirping on about kill the landlords and the guillotine and this and the that. You may as well be telling me something like 6 million wasn't enough or more gas. It's all equivalent to me. You're all just calling for fucking death. Like, and if a white supremacist who's never engaged in any act of violence, let's call him a neckbeard basement dweller, is sitting here screaming that not enough Jews got murdered, and the entirety of the left can flip out on this individual, blow up him to like some sort of pop, just blow his status up, show the entire internet, look at this piece of shit. Doesn't he know what happened to the Germans or what happened to the Jewish people in Germany? Doesn't he know, this ignorant motherfucker, how dangerous his rhetoric is? But meanwhile, no one's saying anything to this mass majority of liberals right now, just casually saying like, hey, this is a great thing. More, please. I would argue, given the current circumstances, at least that guy's bitching about something about the past. You're cheering on something that just happened less than a week ago. Like, there's people in that crowd who started cheering immediately after it happened.
And that tends to be unusual. Because most people's first reaction to see someone die is awkwardness. I mean, even if they're opposed to them, it tends to be awkward until people decide what they think. And to see an immediate reaction is unusual.
Makes me scared for how much worse it would have been if Trump actually did get shot, because then really anybody is on the table.
Oh, it probably would have degenerated into civil war, because they wouldn't have been able to hold back the tit-for-tat assassination instinct.
I'm worried that this could get there. I'm worried that there is a lot of domestic terrorists in this group that need to be exposed. But the problem is anti-fascist ideology has clearly reached the public, and it's literally just festered into everything. If they label Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, I'm worried that there's going to be a major, major, major revolt to that. I believe if they look at Antifa as a gang and they use that as an opportunity to get their way in and expose the actual terroristic elements, that's a safer route, because at least then in these people's minds, it's less existential. But if Donald Trump decides to do that, the very next day is going to be hell on fucking earth. I'm really scared of that.
The talk that I've been seeing has been labeling them a terrorist group, or rather, in bureaucratic terms, treating the ideology as a predicate uh, for other criminal prosecutions. So they're not thinking of Antifa as a gang, they're thinking of it as in the way that they would Al-Qaeda or other organizations like that.
And that's going to get very different, very dangerous very quickly, given how many like fandoms, people, just cultures, they could just start going after everybody. And that was the trap I knew from the very beginning. It's like, if Antifa gets branded a domestic terrorist, that means everybody's on the table. And I'm worried that with such a large population of the American youth being on the left, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that it's going to be your nephews and your grandchildren and your children that are getting targeted, maybe just because they share a furry meme. What I think that's going to do is it's going to cause mass confusion, and then the actual terroristic elements are going to be able to move around in the chaos, and not only that, but use it as justification for further violence.
Okay, I think you're describing prosecuting everyone who was in Antifa or associated with Antifa elements. The impression I get is that prosecutorial resources are limited. I mean, one reason why crime in DC became so bad was because the federal prosecutors were spending their time with January 6th prosecutions rather than things like domestic murders. So they're going to prioritize. Two, treating the ideology as a predicate for other criminal prosecutions means that there has to have been another criminal act. That's not, you sprayed some graffiti for Antifa, therefore we're going to get you for being part of a terrorist group rather than just vandalism. Would they go after guys on vandalism charges? Possibly. But probably just because they think they're either trying to make an example out of someone or because they think the guy did something else, but they can't prove the other stuff.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm singing my song here. I'd tell the police everything. I don't care. But what worries it for me, I think, is I don't know. Just imagining that coming into law, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of like kids with trans flags and queer and rainbow flags and all this, and it's just like any other protest. It starts peaceful, but then they're running their fucking mouths, then a fight breaks out, and it's. I still do worry about the tendencies of the police, and I wouldn't blame them for wanting to enact vengeance to some degree. Some of them for what's happened over the course of Black Lives Matter. But I've also seen a side of police that are very violent. I have watched the police shoot children in the back with tear gas canisters. I've watched them, hit people in the head, point guns in people's faces that were just sitting there. I've seen a lot of craziness and not great behavior from the police. But especially with all like the domestic terror surveillance policies and the Patriot Act and all that, I just think that they're going to get so excited if that happens that they're not going to be thinking about the bigger picture, just the immediacy and the emotional whatever in the moment. Like, realistically, they're probably going to get labeled domestic terrorist gangs or organizations. So for anybody out there that disagrees with my rhetoric, it's probably not going to matter.
I can definitely see some people trying to settle scores amidst the effort to punish people for celebrating the assassination. Now, I don't think there's the patience to really go through the accusations carefully right now. And I don't think people feel like they have the time to go through the accusations carefully either. So this is already a tense time. I'm sure people will do shady stuff and claim they're doing something else. And I'm just glad it's not. I'm just glad it's not reciprocal assassinations.
Hopefully it stays that way. But I think this is going to be a new type of murder spree that we're going to have to deal with for a minute. I just hope that people going to these events. I feel like a lot of these people, they have so many people that support them and are going there. There should really be more like volunteer security patrols, handing out binoculars, telling people keep an eye out on the roofs. We clearly know that's a bad idea at this point. Make sure to look at the water tower. Get some veterans in there. You don't even have to have them armed. Just have more people that are like looking around when these things are happening.
Well, Charlie Kirk had former SEALs on his security team, but they were scanning the crowd rather than the roofs.
Yeah. That's just why I feel like it needs to be more like a just a nice little safety feature. Just to be like, hey guys, before we get started, I know you guys, a lot of you paid to come here, but we're asking for volunteers to maybe just do some patrols. So make sure you can listen to this for free while you're doing it. Like, do you mind helping us out? I bet a lot of people would probably respond to that and be like, yeah, why not? Get to hear something good and feel like I'm contributing a little bit. Like, so I don't know. I watched the video of the shooter running across the roof, and I'm just like, if I had seen that, I would have probably said something immediately, called the cops, started screaming at Charlie, shooter, because it's just kind of so obvious when you see it on the camera. But those areas were just so empty. I don't know.
Well, there's the other side that if the security burden of hosting of an event gets too high, it's oftentimes an excuse universities use to prevent a group from meeting or having events.
True.
So one of the things that scares me is that previously there was a fight by neo-Nazis to try, there's actual neo-Nazis, there's people who use religion as an excuse to hate others. I mean, it's not sincerely acting on the premise of their religion. It's people who don't believe in God saying Christ is king just to annoy other people.
Yeah.
And others who were trying to gain prominence and actual racists, not of the neo-Nazi variety, but just more bog standard stuff, were trying to gain prominence in the right. And there was an effort on the right to keep them out, to stop them from gaining fame. I mean, that's one reason why Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, had so much tension between him and Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. Fuentes wanted in, and Charlie Kirk was keeping him out. So, with Charlie Kirk gone, one of the barriers to there, I'm worried that one, the argument for debate rather than unite with scumbags is going to tilt in favor of the unite with scumbags because debate is impossible. I don't think debate is impossible. Debate was so effective. That's why Charlie Kirk was hated. And that's why he was killed. He was killed because debate worked. So On the left, I think there's a lot of sane lefties who are horrified at the people who are celebrating the assassination. It's also shocking to see people like JAG officers and people in positions of trust celebrating it, but I suppose that's not surprising at this time. Then you have on the right, there's people who are trying to point out that debate works, and then there's people claiming debate doesn't work, let's unite with the scumbags. And that's a very delicate position right now.
And I can tell you, all the preppers, for the most part, they're talking Civil War. And a lot of them are angry and they're wanting Civil War. It's kind of ironic when the preppers are the ones that go and start the chaos that they're planning on bugging out from. But it's like, I can't blame them for feeling that way. Not to say it's good. I don't blame them. But there has to be alternatives. There has to be a mixing of worlds. There has to be more debate. I don't know. It's weird.
Debate really is the only way to try to solve this problem. Because uniting with scumbags doesn't just mean they give you their power. It means they infect you with their habits. And I mean, what Charlie Kirk was true. When people stop talking, the shooting starts. And the hatred of each other was already present when Yugoslavia collapsed. And I really do not want to see a civil war with modern American weapons.
Especially with how twisted people are getting. People are going to get so creative. It's going to be like the fucking purge. And even in the younger generations, they were saying it to me on the internet when I was in high school. And I remember my little brother asking me the same thing whenever I was going to the Black Lives Matter riots and shit. He'd be texting me and asking me questions. And he was probably like a junior at this point in high school, if not younger. But he's like, everybody keeps saying that there's going to be a purge. He's like, is there going to be a purge? And then essentially there was like a theory that there was a timestamp online that everybody was going to activate on this day, and then people were just going to start slaughtering each other and that the government was going to check out. But really, I think what that specific meme did is it kind of softened them up to the idea. They get themselves scared for a minute. Oh, this could really be a thing. And, you know, I'm sure he looks back after a couple of years and he probably thinks he's goofy. And of course there wasn't a purge, but I'm sitting here like, nah, dude, there was. We completely dehumanized each other, turned into fucking animals. We all put on masks. We all tried to scare the living hell out of each other. And we all started fucking up each other's world while the government just let it happen and encouraged it and watched us and monitored us and took in the data and strengthened their bank accounts and, you know, set up this whole fucking agenda. Well, like in the purge, they study us like we're fucking cattle eating each other alive.
Well, I find it interesting that Tim Walz's governorship of Minnesota saw they had something like 18 billion surplus, and now they're in the hole for at least $1 billion.
Jeez.
So 19 billion gone, and probably more wasted through fraud. So the politicians who create chaos for everybody else, like not sending in the guard to tamp down the riots, also allowed billions of dollars to walk out the door, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yep. And the same could be said for Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland at the time. Like, he really had a hand in setting up different groups against each other. And, you know, he'd be talking all this shit to Donald Trump, while also simultaneously kissing his ass. He couldn't pick a fucking side, basically, to where he even went out there and tried to have some sort of talk or something with like a bunch of the Antifa kids out there, and I think he got maced or something like that. But that man made money, and I'm sorry, but Portland, there are various different criminal syndicates that you do not operate at that large of a scale in a city like that without having money in the government's pocket. So the fact that he couldn't pick a side tells me that he was trying to secure a certain objective and that he was going to use people however possible to get that done. And like so many of the responses in Portland were just completely just uncoherent. They didn't make sense. And people in Antifa recognized that. They're like, this guy's a fucking shapeshifter. Like, we can't trust this guy. You'd be like, don't worry, like I'm with you guys. I get it. Enough is enough. There's so much racism in the city. And then he'd be like shit talking police unions and favorite police unions. It was just so wishy-washy. And it's like, what's really driving this decision-making process? Who's threatening you? Who's threatening your fucking bank account? What are you scared is about to be uncovered that you're trying to get away from and cover up? Who were you in bed with?
Okay, I don't know Ted Wheeler, but quite often some politicians who lie constantly do so because they don't expect other people to compare notes or to look at their past statements and see if they match up. So it could just be they manage to lie to get ahead, and they continue to lie because very few people actually check up on it.
Yeah.
It's one of the natural hazards of politics.
Yeah. Just know that those lies were covered up in like continual series of riots, like over a year basically, of just night to night to night to night to night. And like, again, I'm grateful that I wasn't there, but I knew people that were. And I got to see videos that never made it to CNN or MSNBC. Like, I got to see straight from the cell phones of the people that were setting the fire in the federal courthouse what was going on. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that I had to walk away too, on top of the million, is when you see stuff like that and then you see what your people in your community think about it. Because like a whole battle could take place in downtown Eugene, Oregon. And the next day, people on Reddit will be calling each other liars because, well, I would have heard about that on the news. Well, why didn't I hear about that? And it's like, it would become for people that live like a mile or two up the road because people are like that level of checked out.
That's a common problem in DC. So there's some rich neighborhoods, and people would take photos of themselves there and say, DC isn't a crime-ridden hellhole. Meanwhile, 2 miles away, there was Benning Road, and people, well, that's the general murder hotspot for the city.
We treat the world like it's a social media post. I don't know. Everybody just puts these filters up, basically. It's like, people will be treating me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, you realize this is happening in your town to the people around you, to our community. This is people that we live around. Like, this is just everybody at this point. It's the homeless. It just people call you crazy.
I'm speculating that the people who celebrated Charlie Kirk being murdered, they didn't think of it in the full sordidness of a regular murder. They thought of it like changing a television channel, that they had come to stop seeing him as a human being with personality, ideas, the normal range of human foibles and good things. They've come to treat human beings like they would machines, like a non-player character. they get so used to interacting with machines that they treat people like machines.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting that. Well, Cyprian, I feel like we should probably wrap it up here pretty quick. Got to get on with the night. But is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to all this, or?
I was not surprised that there was murderous hate towards conservatives. I am not surprised someone resorted to murder. I am surprised that there were so many people who didn't expect a backlash to celebrating the murder. I expect evil to exist. I don't expect evil to be stupid. That's the thing that really surprises me. And that suggests that the echo chamber, the self-isolation into radical ideological communities is a much bigger problem than I previously thought. I mean, you've got people who are genuinely and rightly horrified, and then people who don't seem to understand why it's a big deal, and that worries me. So if we can just avoid scumbags gaining prominence, things are probably going to calm down. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. Well, you guys, appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of These People Are Idiots. Cyprian, love you, man. Appreciate you. I hope things fizzle out. I hope things... I at least hope if people are going to be ravenous about this Charlie Kirk thing, they at least just stop talking about it en masse soon, and they just move on to the next thing. Maybe that's something we can hope for, is just these people be distracted by the next shiny thing for a minute. But
the Kirk story stayed in the media cycle 2 days longer than I thought it would. People will probably switch to another topic by Friday, I think. It's probably going to simmer in the news a bit because it's an inherently important thing, but it probably won't be daily conversation for much longer.
no, they're just going to throw wormwood at us, and Atlas A1, everyone's going to freak out about it plunging into the ocean. Then it's going to pass by Mars and it's not going to hit Earth. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, okay, on to the next thing. It's going to be a fun media cycle when that happens. But Cyprian, I will not go off on conspiratorial rants right now. Appreciate the conversation. And yeah, you guys just have a good rest of your night and stay safe.
Good night.
My group of souls came to go hard. Put a bunch of skellies in the boneyard. Push that crack rock to the rock stars. All of this I'm playing, God plays all the parts. Mom and the gang, they just jumped me in. Sissy, she and two, they just fucked her in. I met a real nice girl playing just outside. Balloon ruptured in her stomach and I held her while she shook and died. The crooked smile of a crook lifestyle. Little boys selling crumbs in the little vial. Little girls selling panties to a pedophile. Little fucked up, ain't it how we still smile? Ricky Ticky time bomb, look what I've got. Sulfuric love songs, boom bams and wham wops. Brother and my lover and my government threatening me. They think I'm a living body, but you know what? I'm not. And you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. Boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. No, my soul goes up when my heart drops. No, my song don't end when the beat stops. Oh, you can't kill
My group of souls came to go hard. Shitty shanks in they ass when they on the yard. Real knife swingers laying behind the wall. Them boys will souffle your shit for the free ball. Ricky ticky time bomb. Look what I've got. Sulfuric love songs, flim flams and wham wops. Brother and my government wanna end me. You don't end God. And you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. Boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. No, our souls go up when the heart drops. No, our songs don't end when the beat stops. 1, 2, 3, head up and spot. Bullets coming out the boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. No, you can't kill her. Whatever. They think I'm a living body, but you know what? I'm not. Come here. I wanna show you something. You wanna know what I got a dirty ass, sturdy ass 47 with the wood on the stock. I got a pretty piece of glass. I can spot your ass a mile off. Dead on. Boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. Boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot. No, our souls go up when the heart drops. Boy, our song don't end when the beat stops. Bismillah, wallah, hamdulillah, wabarakatuh. I look my killer in the eye and I grab my cock. Boy, I could give a fuck if I'm here or not. Oh, you can't kill a spirit. Nah, nah.